Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Best English Podcast. I'm Sophia, your host for today. Let me ask you a question. Do you ever feel like you're not speaking enough English, or that you need to know more words to sound natural? Do you listen to native speakers and feel like they're talking 100 miles an hour? If you've ever felt that way, you're in the right place. Today, we're diving deep into a topic that so many of you have asked about: how to speak English fast and understand natives. This isn't about learning 1,000 new grammar rules or memorizing a dictionary. It's about practical, real-world skills that will take your English from the B1 or B2 level to a place where you feel confident, comfortable, and truly fluent. So grab a cup of coffee, get comfortable, and let's begin our journey. Learning to carry a conversation is vital to mastering any language. Even if you're just starting to feel more confident, you can quickly learn conversational language well enough to have real conversations with native speakers. Of course, at first, you won't be able to carry a conversation the same way you could in your native language. But just knowing a few tips, like which questions to ask to keep a conversation going, are all you need to speak and interact with real native speakers. Before we get to specific suggestions, let's first take a closer look at why having real conversations in English is so important to your progress. Communicating with other people is the very point of language, and conversation comes easily in our native tongue. For anyone learning a new language, however, conversations aren't easy at all. Even simple greetings can be intimidating and awkward. I remember a story from a listener named Carlos. He had studied English for years in his home country. He knew all the grammar rules, but when he moved to the United States, he found himself frozen in simple situations, like ordering a coffee, the speed, the slang. It was overwhelming. Nothing kills a conversation faster than long periods of awkward silence. So you need practice and specific strategies to avoid them. When you know what to say to keep a conversation going, communication becomes much easier, and you make a better impression on your listener. Nothing will help you learn to speak a language faster and truly master it than having real conversations with native speakers. Conversations quickly expose you to slang, cultural expressions, and vocabulary that force you to absorb and assimilate information faster than any educational setting. And that's a great thing. But how can you possibly have real conversations with real people if you're feeling a bit unsure? Here are 3 proven methods that anyone can quickly use to learn conversational language. Make a great impression and avoid those awkward silences. First, ask questions to keep a conversation going. For beginners and even more advanced speakers, the key is to ask questions. Of course, they can't be just random questions, or else you may confuse the listener. But by memorizing a few key questions and the appropriate time to use them, you can easily carry a conversation with minimal vocabulary or experience. And remember, the more conversations you have, the quicker you will learn and master the language. Think about it like a game of tennis. When you ask a question, you hit the ball over to the other person's court. It gives them a chance to speak and gives you a moment to listen, think, and prepare your next response. Second, learn core vocabulary terms as quickly as possible. You don't need to memorize thousands of words to learn conversational language. In fact, with just a couple hundred words, you could have a very basic conversation. And by learning maybe 1,000 to 2,000 words, You could carry a conversation with a native speaker about current events, order in restaurants, and even get directions. A great place to start is with the most common words in English. We have a great resource on our podcast website that lists these core words to help you get started. These 2,000 words are all you need to learn to speak fluently and carry a conversation with a native speaker. Third, study video or audio lessons that you can play and replay again and again. If you want to know how to carry on a conversation, then you need exposure to native speakers, and the more, the better. Studying audio lessons like this podcast is ideal because they provide contextualized learning, and you can play them again and again until you achieve mastery. Our episodes are designed to help you learn to speak and teach you practical everyday topics like shopping, ordering food, and more. Although it may seem intimidating for a beginner, the truth is that it's very easy to learn conversational language. Just learn a few core vocabulary terms and which questions to ask to keep a conversation going. A little practice and exposure to real conversations or lessons is all it really takes. So, let's start with the very beginning of any conversation, saying hello. There are so many ways to do this in English. Let's explore 10 common ways to say hello. A classic one is good morning. This is often the first thing you say to someone when you see them in the morning. It's polite and friendly. Imagine walking into a coffee shop. You can say to the barista, "Good morning. I'd like a large coffee, please." Or if you see a colleague at work, "Good morning, Sarah. How was your weekend?" It's a warm and standard greeting to start the day. Of course, the most common greeting you'll hear is hello. Hello is a polite, nice way to greet someone when you see them. Everyone says it. You cannot go wrong saying hello. The wonderful thing about hello is that it can be used at any time of the day, no matter whether it's morning or at night or at 4 in the morning when you unexpectedly see someone. You can say hello and it will still be appropriate. It's the universal key to starting a conversation. Now, what if you see a friend you haven't seen in a very long time? A great phrase for this is long time no see. It's not necessarily grammatically perfect, but it's a very common saying that we have. You might run into an old friend at the grocery store and say, "Hey Mark, long time no see. How are you?" It perfectly captures that feeling of surprise and happiness at seeing someone after a while. Another question you can use in that situation is, "How have you been?" This is asking someone how they're doing and how they've been for the past however long. If you haven't seen them in a while, you might combine these phrases. "Hey, long time no see. How have you been?" The past tense here implies that you haven't seen them in a while, and you want to hear about how they are and how they've been for all of that time that you haven't seen them. A more standard everyday question is simply, "How are you?" This means, how are you doing? How are you feeling? How is everything? It's a standard thing that you might say to anyone, even if you've seen them the day before. You might see them today and say, "Hey, how are you?" It's a simple check-in. A more informal, casual way to say, "How are you?" is "How's it going?" So, "How are you?" and "How's it going?" mean the same thing. It's asking how you are doing, how you're feeling. Is everything okay with you? You would probably use "How's it going?" with friends or people you know well. For example, "Hey Tom, how's it going?" An even more informal way to greet a friend is, "What's up?" What's up is another way of saying, hey, how's it going? But this one is very casual. You might say this to friends, hey, what's up? And they might say, nothing much, just heading to class. Churros. It's a very relaxed greeting. As the day goes on, you can use good afternoon. Good afternoon, how are you? Would you like some lunch? Iazda. Good afternoon is a polite way to greet someone in the afternoon. So if you run into your boss after lunch, you might say, good afternoon. It's very nice. It's polite. Not a lot of people say it to their friends, but it's a polite way to greet someone. And in the evening, we have good evening. This is a nice way to greet someone in the evening time. You can only use this phrase in the evening because it's wishing someone a good evening. It's saying hello at a certain time of day. For example, if you arrive at a restaurant for dinner, the host might say, good evening, do you have a reservation? Finally, when you meet someone for the very first time, a wonderful phrase to use is, it's nice to meet you. This is something that's very common to say. You might shake their hand and say, hi, it's nice to meet you. My name is Sophia. It's telling that person that you are happy to be meeting them. It's a pleasure to meet them. So now that you know how to say hello in different ways, what comes next? Introducing yourself. This is so important for making a good first impression. Let's go over 10 essential lines you need for introducing yourself. The first one builds right off our last greeting. After you say, hello, it's nice to meet you, you should follow up with your name. The phrase is simply, my name is, and then you say your name. In my case, my name is Sophia. You can use this when you're introducing yourself for the first time. Or if you need to reintroduce yourself to someone who might have forgotten your name. When you meet somebody at a party, for example, you can say, my name is Barbara, or my name is David. You can also shorten this and say, my name's, as in, my name's Sophia. It's a little faster and sounds very natural. After you've said your name, you might want to share where you're from. You can say, I'm from, and then your country or city. For example, I'm from the US, or I'm from Japan, or I'm from Chicago. This is a great way to give the other person a little more information about you, and it often leads to interesting conversations about travel or different cultures. Related to where you are from is where you currently live. For this, you can use the phrase, I live in. You can use your city, your country, or even a neighborhood. For example, I live in America is fine. I live in Los Angeles is also fine. I live in Brooklyn works perfectly if you're in New York. Just be careful not to say the type of place you live in. If someone asks, where do you live? And you say, I live in an apartment, it sounds a bit strange. They are asking about your location, not your building type. A very common question in the United States when you meet someone new is, what do you do? Orena, this question is asking about your job. People don't usually say, what is your job? Instead, the question is, what do you do? The correct response to that is, I'm a, or I'm an, followed by your job title. So if someone asks, what do you do? You can say, I'm a teacher. Or, what do you do? I'm an engineer. It's a simple and direct way to talk about your profession. Another personal detail you might share is your age. When someone asks, how old are you? You can say, I'm years old. For example, I'm 30 years old. Don't forget the "-es" at the end of years. If you like, you can shorten this phrase to just I'm plus your age, like I'm 30. A quick cultural tip. It can sometimes be considered impolite to ask an adult, especially someone you don't know well, their age. So, try to be sensitive to the situation. If it's a friendly chat at a party after you've spoken to the person a little bit, it's probably okay, but try to be sensitive to the context and the people around you. People love to talk about their hobbies and interests. A common question you might hear in a textbook is, "What is your hobby?" But native speakers don't really say that. Instead, we ask, "What do you like to do?" or "What do you do in your free time?" This is a much more natural question. The answer to this is, "I enjoy," or "I like," plus a noun or a verb with ing. For example, what do you like to do? I enjoy listening to music. Or, what do you do in your free time? I like watching movies. Or maybe I like baking cakes. Or, I enjoy making new friends. Another way to talk about your hobbies is to say, "One of my hobbies is," followed by your hobby. For example, one of my hobbies is snowboarding. With this one, it's probably better to use a short, easy-to-understand hobby. If you're explaining a hobby, people will expect it to be something they know about, like photography, or cooking, or dancing, or swimming. So, try to pick something that will allow you to continue the conversation. That's why movies, cooking, books, or sports are a good thing to share. Since you are learning English, people might ask you about your studies. If someone asks you, "How long have you been studying English?" you can say, "I've been learning English for," and then an amount of time. For example, "I've been learning English for 3 years." Wow! You can also say, "I've been studying English since," and then a point in time like, "I've been studying English since I was in college." Just be careful. For is used for a length of time, like 3 years. And since is used for a specific point in time when you started something. Someone might also ask you where you are learning English. They might ask, "Where did you learn English?" Or, "How are you studying English?" You could respond with something like, "I'm learning English with podcasts," or "I'm learning English at my local school," or "I'm learning English with my private teacher." A little bit of grammar here. Why do we use the present continuous tense, "I'm learning"? If you say, "I'm learning," it sounds like you're still continuing your studies. If you say, "I learned English," it sounds like you're finished, like there's nothing else for you to study. So it's much more natural to use the progressive "I'm learning" or "I'm studying" when you're talking about your studies or hobbies. So those were 10 lines that you need to introduce yourself and to help give the other person a little bit of information and carry the conversation forward. Please try them. Make them your own. Now, let's pause for a quick listening practice. I'm going to play a short dialogue. Listen carefully and see if you can answer the question that follows. You'll hear a man and a woman talking. The question is, "How old is the man now?" Let's listen. Woman: "Your birthday is really soon, isn't it?" Man: "Yep, it's the day after tomorrow." Woman: "How old are you going to be?" Man: "I'm turning 60. Woman: "Congratulations, we should celebrate." Man: "Thank you very much. It's kind of you to say. So, how old is the man now?" The dialogue says he is turning 60 the day after tomorrow. So right now, he is still 59. He will be 60 very soon. Did you get it right? Great job! Let's try one more. A man and a woman are talking. The question is, who lives with the man? Let's listen to the conversation. Man: "I'd like to introduce you to my family. Is there some time soon you could come over?" Woman: Wow, this is a big step. Could you tell me a bit more about your family before I meet them? Man: Sure. My father works in computers, and his hobby is fishing. My mother runs a restaurant, and she's good at cooking. They live nearby. Woman: Do you have any brothers and sisters? Man: Yes, I have an older sister and a younger brother. My sister is married and is living abroad. My brother is in law school over on the East Coast. Woman: It sounds like you have a nice family. I'd love to meet them. So, who lives with the man? He mentions his parents live nearby, his sister lives abroad, and his brother is on the East Coast. This means he lives alone. Tricky, right? These little details are what we're training our ears to catch. Speaking of details, let's go back to something we touched on earlier. Asking about hobbies. As I mentioned, you've probably seen the question, do you have any hobbies? Or, what are your hobbies? In an English textbook before. However, native English speakers in the United States almost never use the word hobbies when asking about them. A much more natural way to ask the same question is, what do you do for fun? Let's practice this question. Repeat after me. What do you do for fun? Great. You can also ask, what do you do in your free time? Let's try that one. What do you do in your free time? Excellent. So, how would you answer this question? Let's look at how native speakers would do it. The easiest way is to say, I like to, or just I like, followed by what you like to do. For example, if you like watching movies, you could say, I like to watch movies, or I like watching movies. Both are perfectly correct. If you like golf, you could say, I like to play golf, or I like playing golf. You can emphasize how much you like your hobby by adding a word like really in front of like. For example, I really like watching movies. This shows great enthusiasm. On the other hand, if you want to play down how much you like something, maybe it's just a casual interest. You can say kind of. For example, I kind of like playing tennis. Now, what if you don't have any special hobbies? Or you don't want to be specific? A good way to reply is, I like hanging out with my friends and stuff like that. Let's break that down. Just use I like and add hanging out with my friends, and then add and stuff like that. The phrase and stuff like that is a very common informal way to mean and other similar things. So it's a great casual response. Let's move on to another incredibly common conversation starter. How are you? You've probably learned, how are you? And I'm fine in textbooks before. But in the United States, people will usually ask this question and answer it in a different way. First, let's review. If someone says, how are you? You can say, I'm fine. Jarons, that is correct. Here are some other ways to answer. You can say, pretty good. This means about the same thing as I'm fine. It's very common and positive. We also have not bad. You can use this if you are feeling just okay or so-so. It's not overly positive, but it's not negative either. Now, let's look at the question again. How are you? Is the most well-known way of asking how someone is. You could use it when you want to be polite. But now, let's look at some different ways to ask how someone is. These ways are more casual and much more common. First, hey, how's it going? You can answer this in many ways. If you're feeling good, you can say good or pretty good or not bad. Let's practice those again. Good, pretty good, not bad. Now, here's a tip. Even though these answers mean the same thing as I'm fine, you can't really answer, how's it going? with I'm fine. It will sound a bit strange to a native speaker. If you're not feeling good, you can say not so good, or not great, or not so well. Be careful though. If you say one of these, the other person will usually ask, why? What's wrong? To be polite, then you will have to explain. So only use these if you are prepared to share a little bit about why you're not feeling great. Another casual but very common version of how are you, 哇早, is what's up. To reply, use a cheerful voice as you say, not much or nothing much. This means you're free and able to chat. Since what's up is just another way of saying hello, you can also reply with hey or hi. A lot of the time when we ask questions that mean how are you in English, we're not actually asking about the other person's health. We're only asking to be polite. You should think of these questions as another way of saying hello, a way for the conversation to get started instead of actual literal questions. In fact, when someone asks you, what's up, you don't even have to answer. You can just say, what's up, in reply. It's like a call and response. Now that we've covered greetings and small talk about how we're feeling, let's talk about one of the most common topics of conversation, especially in the US, our jobs. You've learned to ask, what is your job? This is correct English, but it sounds too direct and awkward. Native English speakers almost never say this in a social situation. Instead, they use a different question. But before we master that, we need to compare it to a very similar question. What are you doing? Listen to these two sentences. What are you doing? I'm presenting a podcast about English. And what do you do? I'm an English teacher. Do you see the difference? These two questions, what are you doing? And what do you do? Sound similar but mean different things. The first one is asking what you are doing right now, this minute. You answer it using a verb with ing. What are you doing? I'm reading, or I'm watching TV. The second question, what do you do, is actually a shortened version of what do you do for a living? This is how we ask, what is your job? In natural English, let's practice this question. What do you do? When native speakers of English ask this question, it can come out very fast and sound more like, what do you do? Bro, to tell it apart from, what are you doing? Just listen for the ing sound on the end of the question. If it's not there, then you're being asked what your job is. So, how would you answer this question? Just think of it as if the other person is asking you, what is your job? You could answer with I am plus your job. I'm a teacher, or I'm an engineer. You can also mention the place that you work at, starting with I work at. For example, I work at a hospital, or I work at a law firm. If you work for a big company that is well known, you can say I work for, and then the name. I work for Microsoft, or I work for the New York Times. When you ask the question, what do you do? And the other person tells you their job, it's polite to make some kind of positive comment about his or her job. For example, you could say, how interesting, or that must be exciting, or even, oh really? Remember to sound sincere. This shows you are listening and engaged in the conversation. Now, let's shift back to, how are you? And explore some more diverse responses. Responding with just, I'm fine, can sometimes stop a conversation. Let's look at 10 different phrases you can use to respond to, how are you? That might make your conversations more interesting. First up, I'm great. If someone says, "How are you?" you can say, "I'm great." Try to say, "I'm great" with an upbeat voice. Something like, "How are you?" "Moi, I'm great." This positive energy is contagious and makes the other person feel good too. On the opposite end, you could say, "I'm feeling bad." If you say, "I'm feeling bad," the other person, if they're a friend of yours or a coworker, is probably going to ask you, "Why? What happened?" So if you want to use, "I'm feeling bad," make sure you have an explanation ready. This is a response you would use with people you trust and feel comfortable sharing with. A more neutral response is, "I'm okay." This one is interesting because your intonation, the rise and fall of your voice, can change the meaning. If you say, "I'm okay," with an upward intonation, it sounds positive, like you're cool with everything. But if someone says, "How are you?" Wow, and you're like, "I'm okay," with a flat or downward intonation, they might think something is wrong. So you can use your intonation with "I'm okay" to make it a good thing or a not so good thing. In a more formal situation, you might say, "Thank you for asking." This is something I imagine being used if my boss's boss asked me how I was. I would probably say something like, "I'm doing well. Thank you for asking." Well, it adds a layer of politeness and respect. After you answer, it's polite to ask the other person how they are. A very common but slightly unnatural response taught in textbooks is, "I'm fine, thank you, and you." Nobody really says that. A much more natural thing to say is, "How about you?" or just to repeat the question back to them. For example, "How are you?" "I'm great. How are you?" This keeps the conversation balanced. If you haven't seen the person for a while, you could respond with, "How have you been recently?" This is only useful if you haven't seen the other person for a while. It shows you remember that some time has passed and you're interested in what's been happening in their life. Another neutral, common response is, "I'm not bad." It's similar to, "I'm okay." Wah? How are you? Rao. I'm not bad. It suggests things are generally fine. Here's a more specific one. I'm sleepy. This is so specific. If someone said, "How are you?" I would probably say, "I'm okay, but I'm a little sleepy." Burrow, I don't know that I would just say, "I'm sleepy," unless it's a really good friend of mine. With a person close to you, you can be more direct. I might say, "I'm super tired," or "I'm really tired." Well, I feel like that's a little bit more natural than just, "I'm sleepy." And finally, a very popular and positive response I use a lot is, "I'm good." If someone says, "How are you?" I often say, "I'm good." That's probably my go-to response. "Yeah, I'm good. Thanks for asking. How about you?" It's simple, positive, and keeps the conversation moving. So we see that even a simple question like, "How are you?" has so many layers in English conversation. The key is to listen and respond in a way that feels natural for the situation. Let's switch gears and talk about politeness. In many English-speaking cultures, asking an adult's age directly can be considered impolite, especially for someone you've just met. If you suddenly ask, "How old are you?" they will understand you, but they might not be too happy about answering such a blunt and direct question. So, how do you find out someone's age without offending them? You just add a magic phrase to the beginning of the question. This phrase is, "Do you mind me asking?" This is an incredibly useful phrase that you should definitely memorize. It comes in handy whenever you want to ask a question that may be a little personal or come across as a little too direct. Native speakers of English use it all the time. So the full question would be, do you mind me asking how old you are? Be sure to pay attention to the word order of this sentence. It's not, how old are you? But, how old you are. The answer to this can be simple. I'm 25 years old, or just, I'm 25. Or it can be a little more detailed. If you've just had a birthday, you can say, I've just turned 25. Or if you're about to have a birthday, you can say, I'll turn 25 this month. Now, to turn this question back on the asker and find out his or her age, all you have to do is use that other magic phrase we mentioned earlier. How about you? Here, it's okay not to worry about being polite, since the other person asked you the question first. Now, we mentioned that asking someone's age might not be polite, but if you do decide to ask this question, here's another tip. Some people like to reply with another question. How old do you think I am? Be careful. If you say an age that's older than the person's true age, they might be very offended. So it's always safer to say a number lower than what you actually think. If you think the person looks 40, say 35, and see how happy they look. Okay, let's talk about how to start a conversation from scratch with a complete stranger. It can be nerve-wracking, right? The first and most important tip is don't be shy. This isn't just a language learning tip, it's a life tip. When you communicate in a second language, it can make you very nervous and anxious, especially if you're talking to someone for the first time. The first thing is just to remind yourself that it's not a big deal and to be confident. If you can maintain that attitude as you begin to talk to someone, it will be much easier. Even if you are shy, just pretend that you're not shy. Even if you can just pretend for a few minutes to start or continue a conversation, it can be really helpful. You might even find that many people who say they are shy can have a different personality in another language. It's a chance to be a different you. So, you could tell yourself that when you speak English, you're more confident than when you speak your own language. Another point about not only starting conversations but continuing them is that comfortable English speakers are pretty okay with interruptions, to a certain point. You shouldn't always interrupt the other person, but you don't need to wait for a formal invitation to speak. You can just join in, or maybe agree with the person who's speaking, or even disagree as a way to join a conversation that's already in progress. Now for a more specific tip. Let's say you're in a place like a restaurant or a bar, and you'd like to speak to someone you don't know. A great technique is to make a simple comment about something happening in the surroundings. This should be a simple comment about something that the other person can also clearly see, and something you can agree on easily. For example, if somebody has just walked by wearing a crazy hat, you could turn to the person next to you and say, "Wow, did you see that hat?" It's something simple and easy to agree on to start the conversation. Or maybe there's a TV in the bar showing a sports game. You could say, "Whoa, did you see that play?" Wow. Find something you might share with the other person. This should be a very simple, relaxed comment to create an environment where the other person feels they can join in easily. It's also a good way to test and see if that other person wants to speak to you. This leads to another good tip. Be patient and wait for your opening. You might want to talk to the person next to you, but if you just jump in with a question out of nowhere, it might seem very strange. But if you wait and have a moment, Wait for that person with the funny hat to walk by. Then you have your opening. You have a natural point to enter into a conversation with someone. Don't be so focused on waiting for that moment that you pick something really strange, though. Like if I walked up to you in a bar and said, "Did you hear that noise?" That's a really strange question to introduce yourself with. So instead of a direct, strange question, it's better to ask an indirect question or make a comment that invites agreement. For example, if I'm standing at a bus stop and I want to start a conversation with someone else and it's very, very hot outside, if I turn to that person and say, "Do you think it's hot?" Wow, awesome. That's a very strange and direct question. But if I say something like, "Wow, it's pretty hot today, right?" That's a little bit more casual and informal. You don't want to scare people with these very direct questions. Giving people that opportunity to agree with you, "It's hot, right?" "Oh yeah, it's so hot," is a great way to start. For that exact same reason, don't try to start a conversation with a stranger by asking, "How are you?" That's an introduction you use for people that you already know. It sounds too familiar, and it's a little confusing to the person you're speaking to. Strangers don't always want to tell you how they really are. Now, let's imagine a different situation, like a party or a social event. Here, you can energetically introduce yourself and ask a question about where you are. If you go to a social event where you're there to meet people and speak to people, you can go up to someone with a big smile and say, "Hi, my name is Sophia. Is this your first time at one of these events?" Something like that can get the conversation started. Other nice introductory questions could be, "Who do you know at this party?" Or, "How did you find out about this event?" In those situations, asking someone for help or for information is also a great strategy. It lets the other person know that you're not a scary or threatening person. If you're asking for help, you seem more approachable. For example, "Excuse me, can you tell me where the kitchen is? I need to put this in the refrigerator." Something like that shows the other person that you're asking for their help, and that gives people an easy thing to engage you on. Asking for help puts you in a slightly vulnerable position, which can actually make people feel more comfortable around you. But what happens if you try all these things and the person just doesn't want to talk? My last tip here is a very important one. Don't take it personally if the person doesn't want to talk. A lot of times, if you try and start a conversation with a stranger, they don't always want to talk to you. They might be very busy. They might have had a bad day. They may not want to talk to anyone. That doesn't mean that you're a bad person or that you can't speak English. If you have that experience, after you worked up the courage to go and ask them a question and they don't want to talk to you, that's okay. Don't take it personally. It has nothing to do with you. You can find someone else to talk to. Especially depending on the culture that you're from, you might have heard that Americans are so friendly or so outgoing. But if a stranger tries to speak to us on the street, we might ignore them because we don't know who that person is. There are so many reasons not to want to talk to a person you don't know. So don't be offended, don't be sad, and don't be discouraged. Don't think, "Oh, my English is so bad this person didn't want to talk to me." Don't think that. It could be any other reason. Okay, my final tip for starting conversations is for people that you have some acquaintance with. Maybe you're not super close to them, but you've seen them before. Maybe it's coworkers you're not super close to. If you'd like to make your relationship with those people deeper, you can share a short, interesting story about something you did recently. Don't tell a long 10-minute story about going shopping for milk on the weekend. That's boring. But share something interesting that you did recently that maybe they can find something of interest or value in. Maybe you found a new restaurant that was good. Maybe you went to a concert that was exciting. Maybe you met someone interesting. If there's something you can share about yourself that the other person might find valuable, that's a good way to initiate a conversation. On that point, another great strategy is to tell an embarrassing story. This is related to being vulnerable. Don't brag. Don't talk about the great new car that you bought. Nobody wants to hear that. But talk about how you lost your car keys immediately after you bought your new car. Tell an embarrassing story. Tell something that will make the person laugh and will make you seem like a normal person. Making yourself look a little bad, it's called self-deprecation, can be very effective for making friends and making people laugh. A story about something bad happening is often more interesting than a story about something good happening. All the best comedies are about terrible things happening, right? So if you have something like you lost your car keys, or you had some kind of funny episode where maybe you don't look like the hero of the story, that's a really good one to share. It's a small, relatable story that maybe someone else can identify with, and then the conversation rolls from there. Now let's review and expand on some of the most useful phrases we've discussed. Here are some of the top phrases in English that you will use again and again. Of course, we start with hello. As we said, it's a universal greeting you can use anytime, anywhere. Then we have time-specific greetings like good morning and good night. Remember, good night is used when you're leaving, not when you're arriving. It's a way to say goodbye at night. The general word for leaving is goodbye, or the more casual bye. When introducing yourself, you'll use I'm plus your name. I'm Sophia, and to ask for someone else's name, you say, what's your name? If you forget, you can politely say, sorry, what's your name again? When meeting for the first time, nice to meet you is the perfect phrase. For checking in with someone, we have, how are you? A good, natural response is, I'm fine, thanks. And you? Or even better, I'm good, thanks. How are you? Now for some essential polite words. Please is used when you want something from someone else. It's also used to accept an offer. For example, in a restaurant, would you like more water? Oh, please. And of course, thank you is used to express your appreciation. You can use thank you with everybody. When someone says thank you, you can say you're welcome. A very casual alternative I like to use is no biggie, which is short for no big problem. For simple answers, we have yes and no. Casual ways to say yes include yep or yeah. A casual way to say no is nope. If you want to soften a negative response, you can say something like not really, or no, I don't think so. The word okay is incredibly versatile. It can be used to agree with someone, or even to express a slight negative feeling depending on your tone. It's also great for transitioning in a conversation. For example, okay, now we're going to talk about. If you need to get someone's attention, like a store employee or a stranger on the street, you can say, excuse me. For example, excuse me, can you tell me where the hot sauce is? Lied. Excuse me is also what you say if you've done something slightly rude in public, like bumping into someone. To apologize for a mistake, you use I'm sorry. You can say this when you've made a mistake at work or you forgot to do something. I'm sorry about that. Wow. Now for some practical questions. To ask for the time, you say, "What time is it?" This is a pretty straightforward phrase with no common short versions. To ask for directions, you can use, "Where is the question mark?" followed by a location. For example, "Where is the bank?" Or, "Where's the post office?" A very important question to know is, "Where is the bathroom?" A more polite and soft expression for that is, "May I use the restroom?" You can use this when you're at someone's house for the first time or in a new place. More casually, you could ask, "Can I go to the bathroom?" At a restaurant, when you're ready to order, you can say, "I would like to order," or more simply, "I'd like a pizza." And when you've finished your meal, you can ask, "Can I get the check, please?" In a very casual situation, you can just say, "Check, please." When you're laughing friends or family, you can say, "See you soon." This is used when you expect to see them again soon. A similar phrase is "see you later," which is often used when you're going to see that person again later on the same day. Finally, the word "really." This is a very useful word because you can use it to show you're interested in a conversation with an upward intonation. "Really? Tell me more." Or you can use it to show you're not so interested with a downward intonation. "Really?" It's a great word for practicing your intonation. Okay, time for another listening challenge. Listen to this report about a company's sales performance. The question is, which two charts is he using for his presentation? Let's listen. Man, please look at the handout. The left chart shows our company's sales over the past 3 years and the sales forecast for the current year. And the right chart shows the monthly breakdown in sales up to October of this year. Now, please have a look at the left chart. It shows that sales have been steadily increasing over the past 3 years, and if we can keep increasing our sales, the total sales for this year will show an increase over last year. Next, please look at the right chart. The right chart shows that the campaigns we ran in April and August were fairly effective. Woman: I see, but the sales decreased in May and September following the campaigns. Man: Yes, but this kind of decrease is unavoidable. I expect the annual sales for this year will show an increase over last year if we can keep increasing our sales. So, which two charts is he using? He is using a chart of the company's annual sales and a chart of the company's monthly sales. The left chart showed the annual sales for the past 3 years plus a forecast, and the right chart showed the monthly breakdown. Did you follow that? It had a lot of business vocabulary, which is great practice. Let's move on to some pronunciation challenges. We asked our listeners about some of the hardest words for them to pronounce in English, and we got some great responses. Let's go through some of them. The first word is absolutely. 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 This word might be tough to pronounce because of the multiple syllables. Absolutely means 100%. It's a strong agreement phrase. If someone asks, "Are you going to that music event next week?" You could say, "Absolutely." It shows strong positive agreement. Next is a strange one, begrime. Begrime. This word apparently means dirty. Though, to be honest, I have never heard or used this word before, but it could be difficult to pronounce. For example, the door to my apartment was begrimed in the storm last week. It's not a common word, so don't worry too much about it, but it's a good pronunciation exercise. Here's a very common word that can be tricky: no. Breakfast, breakfast. Many people find this hard to pronounce. The meaning of breakfast is that you are breaking the fast. A fast is a period of time without eating. So you're breaking the fast of the night. But we don't say break fast. We say breakfast. The first syllable is stressed. This morning for breakfast, I ate a bowl of cereal. Another one from the workplace, colleague, colleague. Many of my students struggle with this. The spelling is really strange with that goo at the end. A more common word with the same meaning is coworker. Colleague sounds slightly more formal. A colleague is somebody you work with or have a business relationship with. I'm going to a networking event with my colleagues next week. Oh, I know. This next one is long. Miscellaneous. Miscellaneous. The spelling is probably what's confusing for this word. Miscellaneous just means other stuff or other uncategorized items. I keep a lot of miscellaneous items in a drawer in my house. Another business word, negotiation. Negotiation. There are two T's in this word, but they both make a soft esh sound. Negotiation refers to a compromise between two people. Business negotiations continued for more than a month. Here's a word that sounds like it's from a fantasy movie. Realm. Realm. I can see why this one's hard. It's that LM sound at the end. Realm. It's used to talk about a world or a domain, often with a fantasy nuance. Let us go to the realm where the elves live. Our autor next is unfortunately, unfortunately, unfortunately. This just means too bad, oisia. You can use this to start bad news. For example, unfortunately, I can't come to work today because I'm sick, sour. A word all language learners know, vocabulary, vocabulary, vocabulary. This refers to the words in a language. My vocabulary in my second language is really low. And finally, a very common but difficult word, world, world. It's that RLD sound at the end that is tough, plus the W at the beginning. It's such a short word, but your mouth has to do so many weird things at the same time. World. Let's try it slowly. World, world. I have traveled all over the world. Give those words a try. Say them slowly at first, and then try to work up to saying them at a more natural speed. Let's do another listening practice. A man is joining a sports club and getting information on its policies. The question is, what type of membership will he choose? Let's listen. Woman. Let me start by explaining our club's different membership options as described in this brochure. Regular members can use the gym and the pool at any time on any day of the week, but we also offer early morning memberships, where people can use the facilities only in the early morning, and night memberships for people who only want to come in the evening. Man. What are the hours for early morning members? Woman. Early morning members can use the facilities from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., and night members can use them from 6 p.m. to 11 p.m. Man. I see. So early morning members can stop by and use the facilities on their way to work. Woman. Exactly. The early morning type is popular among people with 9-to-5 jobs. And we also offer memberships just for the gym or just for the pool if you only want to use one of those. Man. I want to use both the gym and the pool. I think I'll use the gym in the early morning before going to work on weekdays, and then use the pool on the weekend. Do you have a membership that covers something like early mornings for the weekdays but all day on the weekend? Woman. We're sorry, but we don't offer a membership like that, sir. Man. Okay, I don't think I can get up that early on the weekend, so I'll choose this membership option. So, what type of membership will he choose? He says he can't get up early on the weekend, but he wants to use the facilities before work on weekdays. The membership that fits this is the early morning membership. He chose that option at the end. Great job if you caught that. Now let's talk about some phrases that are always nice to hear. These are phrases that can make your day better. The first one is simple. You win. If you hear the phrase, you win, it means you have won something. You are probably going to receive something for free. It's a very happy thing to hear. Congratulations, you win a car. Another lovely one is I brought you something special. This is exciting to hear because it means someone was thinking specifically of you. I brought you something special. Really? Thank you. A very meaningful phrase is I miss you. You can use this with your friends, your family members, your partner. I miss you shows that you want to meet the other person and that you haven't seen them as much as you would like to. It's a very heartwarming thing to hear. Imagine you've had a long, tiring day. Wouldn't it be great to hear this? Take a break. I'll do the cleaning today. This means someone else is going to clean up for you. I would be very happy to hear this phrase right now. If you come home and somebody else has offered to do this for you, you can reply, really? Thank you so much. I'm going to relax. Out. Here's one you might hear in a work setting, or maybe in your dreams. The budget is unlimited. This means there's no limit to how much you can spend. Very exciting. Perhaps you're working on a project and your boss comes to you and says, the budget for this project is unlimited. Really? Let's go crazy. Another great one from work is, there'll be a bonus at the end of the month. This means you are going to receive extra money from your job. Who doesn't want to hear that? Praise is always wonderful. Hearing you did a great job can make all your hard work feel worthwhile. You might hear this from your boss after you finish a project. A simple, thank you so much is a great reply. A nice compliment is you look great today. This means the other person thinks your physical appearance is nice today. Just take the compliment and say, oh, really? Thank you so much. Everyone likes to be right, so hearing you were right can be very satisfying. For example, a friend might say, I saw that movie you recommended. You were right. It was really good. A good response is, oh, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. And finally, if you enjoy cooking, there's no better compliment than you're an excellent cook. This means someone really enjoyed the food you made. At a dinner party, a guest might say, you're an excellent cook. This food is delicious. You can respond, oh, thank you so much. I'm really glad you enjoyed it. Keep in mind, it's nice for you to hear these things, but other people also want to hear them too. So, compliment other people, tell them that they are awesome. Let's continue with some vocabulary focused on a daily activity we all do. Sleep. Let's learn 10 words for talking about sleep. The first word is to wake up. This is when you open your eyes, probably in your bed, and become conscious. I woke up 3 times last night. Next is to get up or to get out of bed. This means to physically move your body from your bed and stand up. I got up at 8:00 this morning. The next word is to snooze. This can mean 2 things. It can mean to take a short light sleep, or it can refer to the snooze button on your alarm. When your alarm goes off in the morning, you can press the snooze button to make the alarm turn on again in 5 or 10 minutes. I always snooze my alarm at least once. To oversleep means to sleep too much or to sleep past the time you wanted to get up. For example, if my alarm is set for 8:00, but I wake up at 9:00, I overslept. I overslept on my first day of work. Son, a nap is a short sleep, maybe 30 minutes or an hour. Many people take a nap in the afternoon. I love naps. A dream is the story or images you see in your mind when you are asleep. I always have weird dreams. A nightmare is a bad dream or a scary dream. Do you ever have nightmares? The phrase to go to bed is the opposite of to get up. It means to get in your bed, to try to go to sleep. I usually go to bed fairly late. A slang expression for to go to bed is to hit the hay or to hit the sack. These are used in more casual situations. I think I'm going to hit the hay. And finally, to fall asleep. This is the moment you lose consciousness and enter sleep. It takes me a long time to fall asleep. Now, let's talk about something a bit more serious. Phrases you might need in an emergency. Hopefully, you'll never have to use them, but it's important to know them. The most important word is help. Use this when you need help or when you want someone to rescue you. In case of an emergency in the United States, you should dial 911. This number is for the police, the fire department, or for medical emergencies. You can tell someone, "Call the police, please." When you call 911, the operator might say, "Please state the nature of your emergency." This is a formal way to ask for more details about your emergency. If you need medical assistance, you can say, "I need a doctor," or if the situation is urgent, "I need an ambulance." In case of a fire, you can shout, "There's a fire!" This is a simple way to get people's attention. After saying this, you need to explain what happened and where the fire is. If you are the victim of a crime or witness one, you can say, "I want to report a crime." When you call for help through the phone, you'll need to say where you are. Start your explanation with the phrase, "My location is," and then give your address or location. It's always good to be prepared. Knowing these phrases can make a big difference in a difficult situation. Now, let's shift to a more positive topic. Why are you learning English? Let's explore 10 great reasons to start learning a new language. One reason is that it's a beautiful language. Every language has specific characteristics, and some people just like the way certain languages sound. For many people, their cultural heritage is very important. My family comes from a place where the language is spoken. Learning that language can help you connect with your relatives and understand your background. Or perhaps you can say, "I love the culture and the people who speak the language." If you're really interested in a specific country and its culture, this can be a great reason to learn a language. It's also shown that being interested in a culture motivates language learners to work harder. Some people are just lifelong learners. They can say, "I just love learning languages." Learning a language takes time and effort, and some people love that challenge. For many, the reason is professional. The language is useful for my job. Being able to speak another language can help your business and maybe even get you a promotion. If you've moved to a new country, you might say, "I live in a country that speaks the language." Learning the language of the place you live can help you make friends, get a job, and have an easier life. Learning a language can also broaden your horizons. I want to open my mind and become more international. It can change how you interact with the world. For fans of pop culture, a good reason is, I want to understand my favorite songs, movies, and TV shows without subtitles. Learning a new language can add depth to your appreciation of a culture. If you love to travel, learning a language is a fantastic tool. I love traveling. Traveling to a place where the language can be a much richer experience. And finally, a very practical reason for many is it's part of my university studies. Most universities require students to take language classes, but it doesn't have to feel like work. Learning a language for university can open great opportunities in the future. Whatever your reason, remember that learning a language is a journey. Be patient with yourself and celebrate your progress along the way. Now for something a little more fun, gamer speak. Video games have their own special vocabulary. Let's look at 10 common words. An achievement is used when you have completed a mission in a game. You might see a notification that says, "Achievement unlocked." Beta is for something that's not quite finished, maybe in a testing phase. I am beta testing a new game right now. A boss is the main enemy you have to fight at the end of a level in a video game. RPG stands for role-playing game. This is a popular style of game where you play a role or a character. A checkpoint or save point is a place in a game where you can save your progress. If you die, you come back to life from that checkpoint. A noob is a slang term for a rookie or someone who is inexperienced at something. It's often used playfully. Farming in gaming terms means you are trying to collect a certain item by repeating an action over and over again, like defeating the same creature many times. An NPC means non-playable character. These are characters in the game that you can interact with, but you cannot play as them. A camper is a player who waits in one spot for an enemy to appear. And finally, an MMO is a massively multiplayer online game. This means you can play online with a lot of different people. Even if you're not a gamer, it's interesting to see how language evolves in different communities. We've covered so much today, from basic greetings and introductions to handling conversations, practicing pronunciation, and even learning some gamer slang. The key to speaking English fast and understanding natives is practice and exposure. It's about building your confidence one conversation at a time. Remember the stories we talked about, like Carlos, who was frozen when ordering coffee. His knowledge was great, but he needed the practical experience of real-life conversation. That's what we are aiming for. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. Every mistake is a learning opportunity. Don't take it personally if someone doesn't want to talk. Just move on to the next opportunity. Use the phrases and techniques we discussed today. Start with a simple hello or how's it going or das. Ask questions to keep the conversation flowing. Share a small, interesting story about your day. Listen to how native speakers use intonation and casual language. The more you listen, the more you'll understand. The more you speak, the more natural you'll sound. It's a cycle of learning that feeds itself. Thank you so much for joining me today on the Best English Podcast. I hope you found this session helpful and feel more prepared to jump into your next English conversation. Practice what you've learned and don't be shy. If you enjoyed this episode and want to continue improving your English with us, please make sure to subscribe to our podcast so you don't miss our next lesson. And if you could take a moment to leave a review, it would help us reach more English learners just like you. For an extra reminder, be sure to turn on your notifications. We have so much more to share with you. Until next time, keep practicing, stay curious, and happy learning. This is Sophia, signing off.